This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
I never said I want to start a company. That's the thing I want to do. It's just I kept doing projects and kind of learning stuff and realizing how much fun it was, and just being surprised at seeing like the thing that I do for fun, people were interested in and kept trying to buy from me. That was really all it was.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Hey, Do It for a Living community. This is Todd Ersley, and I'm here today with Ben Horst of Eddy Motorworks. He is somebody that I kind of stumbled across via the Sema Launchpad competition. And so he's got a pretty cool product, kind of forward-looking, very innovative product that I'll let him go into in this episode. But, I kind of stumbled upon him and I was like, man, this is really cool. So I wanted to reach out and kind of hear more about his business and his business model and kind of where he's going. And the overarching gist of it is electric vehicles. And so this is something that, I think is going to be a big part of the future. And this Ben here is a modifier of a vehicle to make it electric. And so wanted to hear his story and what he's doing with it and where he thinks the industry is going. So, Ben, how are you doing today?
Doing really great. How are you doing, Todd?
I'm doing good. So kind of what we want to do is, just have you tell us about yourself and your business. How did you get started? What's your background? Where are you from? So take us all the way back to when you were a kid.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Atlanta. I started going to high school here. And then pretty much as soon as I did that, I started doing welding and stuff in my garage, tried to build a few go-karts, build a hovercraft, did all the kind of budding mechanical engineer kind of projects that I'm sure a lot of people have done. And then just got really interested in cars and different kinds of cars. I wanted to try to build stuff that wasn't the kind of thing that people had seen before. And then when I went to school, I went to Georgia Tech. I was part of a solar racing team and then another team that modified a Camaro to make it a hybrid. And I just found all of that very exciting, especially the electric stuff. Once I got to get my hands on electric motors, inverters, and all the electronics and all the hardware that's behind modern electric vehicles, I guess part of me was confused why there wasn't, cool stuff out there using that stuff. The electric vehicle market's a really cool thing, and it's growing really quickly, but you really don't have that many choices. If you want to get an electric vehicle, you get a super luxury sedan or a commuter pod, and that's kind of your only choices. If you want anything else, and really anything where the point of having the car is actually to drive the car, you're kind of out of luck with electric. And I just thought that was kind of weird, because it's not like the technology is not there. It's not like we don't have the ability to make something just by assembling stuff in the right way. So when I was, a junior in school, I had the idea to do a similar kind of thing, but it was a hybrid. So it was this track car that we made as just a personal project, pretty much, called the PH571. So performance hybrid track car thing. It was a 2-cylinder, a little V-twin, like a liter engine, and then a big electric motor and a big battery pack, kind of assembled out of random parts. It was like a marine boat engine and a snowmobile CVT and a forklift electric AC motor and some batteries from a smart car. So pretty much everything you could find from anything. Yeah. But it's a cool thing. I mean, the car is really fun. We learned a whole bunch doing it. It gets like 75 mpg, and it's pretty quick. 0-60 is like 5 seconds.
So is that a tube chassis car, or did you base it on some other manufactured vehicle?
Yeah, it's a tube chassis car. So, and it's a completely ground up tube chassis car. So it was not based on another tube chassis. We cut and welded every tube ourselves, which hopefully we'll never do again in my life.
Was that something with school, or was that just, it was a completely side project?
Pretty much a completely side project, except that I had a scholarship at Georgia Tech, and I used like my enrichment funds is what they call it. A lot of people use it for like a study abroad or something. So I managed to get a couple professors to vouch and say, yeah, this is a cool project and he's going to learn something from it. So I used some of that money. But other than that, it was pretty much a personal project. Although it eventually became like my senior design project at school in like the last few months of the project. So, but yeah, that was kind of the start of this whole thing. So I'm graduated now and everything, but we started taking that car to places, just going to car shows, Caffeine and Octane in Atlanta, and then we got invited to go to Caffeine and Octane at the beach at Jekyll Island, and we took that car down there, had a really good time, ran into a lot of people, and just, I guess, we're surprised at how excited people were to see this different electric and hybrid stuff. You know, I guess I'm surprised because no one's doing it, but yet people are still really excited about it and want to know where they can buy one and want to know why no one else has built an electric track car.
Yeah,
so,
I think I've researched probably a dozen times on building my own like retrofit electric vehicle, and just, you know, I never obviously pulled the trigger. But I know there's lots of retrofit companies out in California that take like Porsches and Volkswagens, you know, Volkswagen Beetles, and turn them into electric. But, you know, they're somewhat performance based, but it's never like, I mean, and they're legitimate businesses, so they're doing a lot of R&D and quality control. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You know, the manufacturers themselves are really dragging their feet, and it's kind of sad that, you know, they have to have somebody like Tesla come in and really shake up the industry and push people towards it. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, there's very few people that are actually doing cool electric vehicle stuff compared to the number of people that are doing it, you know, with internal combustion engines.
Yeah, exactly. And like, especially hot rodding kind of thing, you know, where people take parts from random cars and put them together and, you know, somehow make some crazy thing in their garage. That's just not done at all with electric yet. The conversion shops out west are really impressive. A lot of what we know is from what they've already figured out. You know, it's not like what we're doing is too much different than them. We're just trying to build this performance-oriented track car versus, you know, one of those conversion things, which, to our knowledge, no one has yet done.
Not really done. No, I haven't really seen one. There was like a late '60s Mustang, and man, that was probably 4 or 5 years ago that some guy built, and it was crazy fast, but it just, I haven't been able to find him doing anything anymore. But it was like a, you know, like a drag racing, you know, burnout machine was pretty much what it was designed for. But yeah, I don't really know anybody building like track cars. So the, you know, the first gen Tesla, the Roadster, is probably the only thing that I've ever seen that would even go on the track. There was a couple of them down at our local track here in Dallas at Motorsport Ranch, and we'd see them out there every once in a while. But yeah, there's, you know, you make a good point about hot rodding. That was really what it was back in the day, was taking parts from different vehicles to make something fast. And so, you know, you're not upgrading battery packs or motors or anything. You're actually putting together. You're really, like you said, hot rodding and putting together your own vehicle to make it go fast and be cool.
Yeah, that's really what it is. It's just electric hot rodding is probably the best way to describe what we're doing.
Very cool. So, you know, kind of give us an idea of, you know, what you're doing with the business now. So, you know, kind of walk us through the project that I mentioned earlier and, you know, what you're going to be doing with it.
Yeah, sure. So to finish up that story about the Jekyll Island thing, and kind of rolls right into your question there, we bumped into, and we'd known him for a while, Kevin Patrick of Exomotive, and his company builds the Exocet kit car, which is it's the most popular exoskeletal kit car you can buy. They have about 500 out there right now. It's a Miata-based thing, so you buy their exoskeletal tube chassis, and then you get a Miata first or second gen, and you throw all the stuff in there, and then you have a pretty cool race car. So we kept bumping into him, and he kept making fun of how similar the car we built was to his car, because it does look very similar. You know, all tube chassis cars kind of have that same hoop with the triangles on the side design. But yeah, and so we kept making jokes about, wouldn't it be cool if we built an electric Exocet? And then I guess we just made enough jokes so that we started doing it. Yeah, that's pretty much all it was. So every time we bumped into Kevin at a car show, which was like at least once a month, we would just kind of throw back and forth ideas of, I wonder if we could fit a few batteries there. I wonder if a Tesla motor would fit back between the, you know, the roll bars, you know, all that stuff, just kind of, throwing ideas back and forth, and that's kind of how the whole thing started. So my company, Eddy Motorworks, started in January out of a startup incubator at Georgia Tech, my school. We applied for this thing. They gave us some seed money, and we're still in that program. Actually, it goes until August. It's really helpful. It helps out with like pretty much everything that's not the product side, the marketing, the legal, all that kind of stuff. But so a company was founded, bumped into Kevin at a good time. I gave him like 4 or 5 different ideas of how we could build an electric one, and he immediately flipped to the back page, which was the highest performance option I came up with.
Yeah.
And we chose that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically what it is, it's called the Electrocet. Not a very clever name, it's just the electric Exocet.
Yeah.
But it is a Exocet, which is this tiny little Miata-based chassis with an entire Tesla Model S drivetrain put into it. And we're building them as basically the same way that like Tesla Roadsters were. It's sold basically as a completed car, but Tesla Roadsters were actually kind of sold. It was a confusing thing, but they weren't a complete OEM complete car. It was a remanufactured Lotus is kind of how they got around some of those things. So that's kind of what we're doing. We will be selling an assembled Exocet as an electric one. So it's the lowest trim model one, which is the one we're building right now. The 1S2 has 52 kilowatt hours of battery, so it's the majority of a 60 kilowatt hour Tesla.
Okay.
And then the full motor, and we salvage a lot of the other parts from the car, small things like electronic components and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of make it all work together. We do custom screens, custom displays, custom electronics, all the fiberglass work we do in-house. The frame is about 50% modified from the original Exocet, just for all the batteries and motor stuff, and we do all that welding in-house as well. And that's pretty much it.
Tell me, what kind of brought on the idea to do this vehicle? Like, are you looking to sell the car? Are you looking to push the industry further? Is this something that you said you've now graduated from college? So is this something that you're turning into your full-time job?
Yeah, this is basically my full-time job. So we would love to start selling these as soon as we possibly can. We're opening pre-ordering next week. We have a couple of videos coming out of what the performance is going to be like, everything like that. We have the whole assembly kind of set up, ready to go. We're finishing the first pre-production model right now, just to get the final test numbers out there. But yeah, the idea behind my company, I guess I never gave a full overview of exactly what we do. We do the conversion thing as well. So the thing that you mentioned about on the West Coast, we're doing that as well in Atlanta. We have a couple of those lined up, but right now we're holding off on doing those while we're doing the Electrocet. So
and that's just people that want to convert some other vehicle into electric.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a customer who really likes mid 70s 450 SLs. So we're going to do one of those. It's going to be a little bit faster, way more reliable, and obviously electric. So it's still a cool thing, but if my hope is that we can get the company to slide completely into the Electrocet thing and just in general ground up custom electric cars, that would be a lot more exciting. It's a lot more interesting. There's, like I said, no one else is doing much there. So if we could be the first people to be building and selling electric track cars, that would be a much more exciting thing for us to do. So yeah, our website is active now. You can kind of check out all the stats on the car, but see, I give you a quick rundown of what it is. The 0 to 60 is 2.9. Range is about 250 miles plus, and this is all in the lowest trim level vehicle. So there's a few above it that are faster and longer range. And let's see what else. The CG is 2 inches above the axle.
So it's very low.
Yeah, so we don't even have roll bars because you just don't need them. It's going to be, it's a pretty crazy thing.
What is the CG on a Tesla? Because it's got to be really low as well.
I don't know an exact number. It's also very low for sure. Yeah, but it's also like a 4,500 pound car.
Yes, it's much bigger. Yeah.
And ours is a 2,000 pound car.
So is that how you're getting a lot more of the range out of the smaller battery because it weighs half?
Yeah, that's it. Pretty much. I mean, if you want to boil down everything we're doing to one sentence, it's just take the entire Tesla and then make it less than half the weight.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Awesome. So while you were in college, what were you studying?
I did mechanical engineering as my major and chemistry as my minor. So, and then I was, like I said, I was on a lot of those car teams and did all that stuff. And the kind of the whole mechanical engineering pathway through school.
Yeah, because it sounds like Georgia Tech has a large technological section for automotive stuff, which to me seemed a little odd, but I don't really know very much about the Atlanta demographic for vehicles. So are there a lot of OEs there, or is it just that school has kind of pushed in that direction?
There are basically none here.
Okay.
There's some, large automotive suppliers in the area, but as far as I know, the closest, there's manufacturing plants in Georgia and South Carolina, but I don't know of any. Porsche has its North American headquarters in Atlanta, but they do only, there's no engineering there. So all business stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah, not really. Georgia Tech I wouldn't say it has the largest automotive program of a lot of, engineering schools in the Southeast, but it's a big one. Mainly it's just, there's a lot of good student run teams and clubs that are automotive related. Not as much directed towards, OEM, GM
Gotcha.
and Ford kind of cars, but more like, Formula SAE, those kind of teams.
Yeah, because
Formula Hybrid is another one. Those kind of
Formula
things.
SAE is one that most of us are more familiar with because a lot of the engineering schools have that.
Yep.
My school did the Baja car, but we didn't really compete. We just kind of built one and putzed it around the parking lot.
We have that. Our school has that too. We're all in the same little building, so it's Formula SAE, Baja. There's a Formula Hybrid team. There's a team called EcoCar, and then there's Solar Racing, which was the one I was involved in.
Yeah, so you're telling me I need to go back to college and do all of these programs.
Yeah, man, they're pretty cool.
And so, it kind of makes sense, but it's a little surprising with all the electrical stuff that you're into that you didn't get it wasn't an electrical engineering degree, it was mechanical. So are you, the team that you've got there, is it, are you on the mechanical manufacturing side and you have other people doing the electrical, or kind of tell me how that works?
Sure. Kind of the fun thing about doing what we're doing and being, I think you've talked to some of the other people who have started to reverse engineer Tesla stuff and do this kind of stuff. No one's really doing it, so it's not like a degree is going to really help you with any of it. We're all figuring it all out. So I do a lot of the mechanical stuff. I do all of our welding. I run our CNC stuff, but I just was out there working on doing high voltage wiring for the pack, and I don't do a lot of the coding. I have a team here and who does a lot of that for me, but I'm involved in everything. So the cool thing about a mechanical engineering degree, if there's anyone listening who's thinking about what degree they want in college, I'd highly recommend IME just because it's super duper broad. It doesn't really, that's a common misconception. People always ask me oh, you're doing electric cars, shouldn't you have been double E? And I'm like,
yeah.
Honestly, no degree is going to throw you out of school with any knowledge on how to build an electric car.
Yeah.
There isn't a degree for that yet. Maybe one day, that'd be pretty cool. But it's just learning all these things piece by piece until you have enough skills that you can finish a car. That's really all it is.
Yeah, this industry of people kind of teaching themselves how to tune or how to weld, that's kind of the big part of it. And so, going to college sounds like for you, you learned a lot, but it was the opportunities that presented themselves to further, your innovation and your ideas is what the big point was.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you got started in college, did you expect to start your own business and be an entrepreneur, or were you thinking of going down a different path when you first got started?
Yeah, definitely was not planning on it. I think I had a pretty standard idea of just, I guess I had lower aspirations, not pessimistically. I just kind of had the idea that I was going to go through a 4-year degree and then get a job at probably an automotive company, but just some kind of standard engineering job. yeah, exactly, something like that. I really didn't. I don't know if I ever sat down and had the aspiration to start a company. I know some people, and there's some people in the startup incubator we're in. It's called CreateX at Georgia Tech. I know some people who had the plan to make a startup before they had the idea for what it would be.
Okay.
I actually know a lot of people like that. They were just what I want to do is start my own company. I just got to figure out an idea that's good enough.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's, if you know the kind of lifestyle you want, you just got to figure out how to put it together. Totally okay. I was exactly the opposite. I never said I want to start a company. That's the thing I want to do. It's just I kept doing projects and kind of learning stuff and realizing how much fun it was, and just being surprised at seeing like the thing that I do for fun, people were interested in and kept trying to buy from me. That was really all it was. So I guess like it was last December, we were invited to interview for this like startup incubator thing, and we didn't even have like an idea of what the company really was yet. There was some professors and some staff at the school who had just seen a lot of the projects I'd built with teams and on my own and on our own, especially that hybrid track car thing, and they just called us in. They're like, you should interview for this startup incubator.
Yeah.
We're like, you don't even have an idea for what a company is yet. But they're like, but you built a really cool car that people want. I'm like, I guess so.
Yeah.
And that's really all it was. Now we're doing the conversion thing as half of it, and then the Electrocet's the other half. But it was not planned at all, to answer that question.
Yeah, and that's really cool. You just turning your passion into a business is what most of us are trying to do in this industry. Because it's the fun part is running it, like doing your own thing and, taking pride in your work. So yeah, I definitely understand that and can agree with you on that point. So you've mentioned the incubator several times. Can you kind of explain what that is, what they, expect from you, what they give you, what they take from you? Kind of run us through that whole process of, actually being in an incubator, because you're kind of in a little different position of your company is manufacturing stuff, but I would more consider it like a technology company than than like a product manufacturer, even though that is what your end product is.
Yeah, that's definitely accurate, calling us more of a tech company than like a manufacturer. Because what we do mostly is what we've been doing for now. We've yet to sell a car, so we have conversions lined up, but we've not sold an Electrocet yet. So all we've been doing for now is R&D basically. So, but yeah, the startup incubator, like I said, it's called CreateX. So Create-X, and specifically the program we're in is called Startup Launch. It's a 2-semester thing. Generally, most teams come in. We're a little unconventional how we got in it, but most teams come in and you have to apply and go through a multi-round interview process, and then they accept you. You just have to be Georgia Tech affiliated, really. I think you can be graduated by a few semesters. You can be a freshman. I think you can be an incoming freshman if you have your life figured out that quickly.
Yeah, if you're really have really high aspirations.
Yeah, exactly. There actually is one team in there that I think is first years, which is impressive. But yeah, it's a cool program. I think it's been going around for like 3 or 4 years. Georgia Tech is really trying to expand. Georgia Tech has been a very, very powerful research institution for a long time, and they're trying to expand how they foster companies growing now. That's kind of one of the big pushes of the university right now, is to help companies come out of it, help ideas turn into real things, as opposed to just publishing a lot of really impressive papers. Mm-hmm. So this is one of those programs. We started in the spring, so we came in I guess February to that program. At that point, it was pretty mild. We met once a week for like 3 hours with some advisors and like the other 4 companies who were currently in it. It's interesting because our company is not what most people would think of when they hear like startup. When you think startup, at least I do, I generally think like an app or something, or like a Kickstarter sized hardware piece of, something that's like you can hold in your hand, or something that you can download onto your phone. That's generally like a lot of the startup kind of things. And that's kind of what the program is based around too. So it's an interesting thing trying to start a car company basically out of what is kind of designed to be a software tech startup incubator. But a lot of the advice still carries over. So we get advice about just all the stuff that, a 23-year-old person probably doesn't know about business yet, legal, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So starting this summer, starting in, I guess, June, is when the program ramps up a lot. We meet all day once a week, which is sometimes great and sometimes frustrating.
Yeah.
There's a lot going in the shop.
Got lots of other things to do.
Exactly. But we did get a $20,000 investment as part of that program for a small percentage of the company, a pretty reasonable valuation for a 5-month-old company at the time. So and then other than that, it's just a lot of resources, a lot of good connections. We've actually gotten a second investor kind of through a connection through that program. We actually had a customer lined up to do a conversion also through that. It's just it's a lot of cool stuff. It's the best thing, honestly, about it is just to be in a room once a week with, now it's like 20-something teams, 20-something companies, and you just get to see those other people going through all the same struggles, or some struggles maybe you already did, or maybe some you haven't got to yet. And I guess it helps the disillusion of starting your own company, because
Yes.
you go through days where you're like, oh, what are we doing? Like, we haven't made money yet. You just look at the bank account and see that you lost a few $1,000s this week on parts and tools, and it just feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And then you walk into a room with 25 other teams who are also in the same position, or sometimes worse, and they're happy and optimistic. That's probably the most powerful thing about being in an incubator. It's just not feeling like alone in this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. There's that kind of group is often in the professional world called it's a mastermind. So you get 3 or 4 or 5 people together and you meet quarterly or annually or something, and you kind of discuss the business and how it's going. And, there is a lot to be said about that when you get people from different industries in the same room. In the automotive side, we kind of all hang out together. And it's you get kind of a repetitive recycling of ideas sometimes, without any new, fresh ideas or thinking coming in. So it's I can see how that can provide value, and that's a really cool process to kind of go through an incubator. That's not going to be something that a normal performance automotive shop is going to do, but you guys are looking to expand. This is a real business model here. So did they require, or have you had to write any sort of formal business plan for it? Or are you just kind of winging it and giving them, projections and small spreadsheets?
We have not done a formal business plan. And I guess one thing I really like about this incubator is they're not too big on, all of these companies are very, very young. So they're not too big on those kind of things like projections of income and, and all that stuff yet. Obviously, that's super important, and we have plans to draft a formal business plan soon. But it's just impossible to forecast. Like, we're building the first electric race car that, as we know, anyone's ever sold. So we have no idea what that market's going to be like, and we have no idea. I mean, we have an idea, but we don't know if it's going to be a few purchases or a whole bunch. So it's really hard to forecast anything when we don't even know what the demand is going to be like. So I appreciate that in this program, that they don't make us write bullshit when we don't have any data to support it. So
you're just going to be picking numbers out of the air anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't make us do that yet. Like I said, we're like 6 months old. So in the future, business plans are definitely in the mix, just not quite there yet.
So they're more trying to get you to the point of having a real, like a proof of concept prototype, and with a solid business backing, like an actual idea of what you're going to be doing with it versus just tinkering in the garage.
Yeah. I mean, some of the companies that came in pretty much already have a product.
Cool.
Some of them are like pretty much done. And then some of them have nothing really set up yet. So the incubator some of them, like you said, are there to help you get your prototype to a proof of concept level. And then some are trying to get, some of the products are also like drug related. So they have to go through all kinds of difficult approval processes. Some of them are patentable, so they have to do all that stuff. So it's a lot of that kind of thing, helping you find your customer, make sure you're building the right thing instead of just something that you think is cool. That's a big part of it. And then a lot of the legal stuff like patents and all that too.
So do you think you'll be staying in Georgia, like for the location purposes? Is that where you want to keep the business, or are you thinking of going somewhere a little bit more tech oriented or manufacturing oriented?
I would like to stay in Georgia. I mean, the biggest plus by far is that Exomotive, who builds half of the frame of the car we're building right now, is 10 minutes away. So that's a pretty huge plus. We get we also have a couple suppliers in Georgia that do our tube cutting, and it's pretty easy to get steel here. It's pretty easy to get anything here because there's just a bunch of railroads that go through. So it's not like you can just get anything online. So it's really not that big of a deal. Atlanta is a great city for electric stuff. It's depending on the list you look at, a lot of them rank it like 2, around 1 or 2 for EV friendly cities, usually behind San Francisco.
Okay.
We have a whole bunch of charging stations. There's a lot of networks. There's a lot of parking spaces that you can use for it. And that's because a few years ago, both the federal and state governments issued tax rebates if you bought an electric vehicle. And in Georgia, you could use both of them. So you could get a Nissan Leaf, for example, for like almost free if you leased it for 2 years. And then the rebate would pay for basically that 2 years.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, which is great for us because it means that electric car. I think Atlanta has the second most Teslas behind the San Francisco area.
And they can sell. Can they sell Teslas in Georgia? Because they in Texas, you can't actually sell them due to the dealer laws. So
there's a dealer down the street from me. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So it's location is actually in your favor here. I didn't realize that Atlanta and Georgia specifically were like that big a deal electric cars, but that's going to be great for you guys.
Yeah, there's not a lot of manufacturing or development here, but there's people buying them here, which is kind of more important for us in the short run, at least.
Gotcha. And so kind of thinking about like the business side of things, like, do you ever doubt yourself and think like, oh my God, like what if this doesn't work? And then kind of like, what do you do to move forward from that thinking?
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest challenge here, because it's, especially with cars, it's hard to get real answers from people about the worthwhileness of what you're doing. Because we go to all kinds of shows, we go out and try to ask people, try to go to races and tracks and try to poll what we think is our probable customer for what they think of what we're doing. And the problem is, I call it the "that's neat" problem, is that anyone you talk to at a racetrack especially, or something like that, and you say, hey, we're building this electric race car that goes 0 to 60 in 2.9, what do you think? None of them are going to say that's stupid.
Yeah, they're all enthusiasts. Yeah.
Everyone says that's neat. The problem is taking the person who says that's neat and converting that to someone who will actually purchase the thing. So yeah, that's hard. And sometimes every once in a while I say, oh no, what are we doing? Maybe there is no one who actually wants this thing. And it's pretty scary, but the thing I always go back to is, I'm 23, all of us are like in our young 20s, and I got good grades in school. I could go get a pretty good regular engineering job if I wanted to. But if I was sitting at a desk doing a regular engineering job, even if it was a good one and I enjoyed it, if I did that in 2 or 3 years, knowing that I attempted to do my dream and it didn't work out, I'll be perfectly happy with that regular engineering job at that point. But if I didn't try this, then I'd be sitting at that desk saying, God, I could have done it.
Yeah.
And the worst thing would be like if I'm sitting there designing, a car for a large automaker or something, and I like read an article online of like some company that comes out with the first electric track car, and it's selling like crazy, something like that. It's just, I have the opportunity in my life now to try it, and we're going to try it. And if it doesn't work out, it's the only thing that's really scary is money.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of money to invest in something you're not sure will succeed. But the time thing doesn't really scare me, because I'd rather spend my time on something that I'm passionate about than just go sit down and start on my pension. So
yeah, just working the 9 to 5. Huh? Well, actually nowadays it's like a 8 to 7. That's kind of the typical engineering schedule.
That's
now.
about what we do.
Or 7 to 9, maybe. That sounds pretty about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like with your, with this track car, like I know I've seen some electric track car, and it was even autonomous, because it just killed the Nürburgring time. It was the only one that ever do it, but it was still a very impressive time. And for some reason, I think they brought it out to COTA as well.
I think you're talking about, is that the Neo EP9?
I think it's the only one I've ever seen has been blue, and it's
a crazy looking blue thing with huge fairings and like a tiny, it almost looks like a McLaren F1 cockpit.
Yeah, but it's like that's going to be a very, very, very expensive vehicle. That's going to be an elitist electric car, where what you guys are building is going to be much more in the realm of your normal, weekend racer kind of guy. And so it's exciting to see, a a much more affordable and attainable electric vehicle that's still going to perform really well is, to me, again, like, that's neat. It's appealing to a lot of people. And so I do kind of hope that, a lot of people start putting down payments on those things, because I'd love to see them out at the track.
Yeah, that's our hope. I mean, that's kind of our whole point, is trying to build something that is attainable by the average person, because we think they're really cool. And I think that people just don't know what electric systems are capable of yet, because no one's really done it. I tell people that, like, when people say, well, what about Tesla? They've done incredible things. I'm not disputing that. We obviously use their stuff. They're incredibly well-engineered vehicles. But Tesla, they build pieces of technology. I wouldn't necessarily say that they build great cars. They're incredible, but they're not really a driver's car. There's a lot in a Tesla that makes it so you can't feel the road. You don't really know what's going on, to the point where, of course, obviously they're trying to make them just drive themselves completely.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So no one's really trying to go back and say, I've always driven like small little sports cars because I enjoy the feeling of driving. I kind of want the steering wheel to be responsive. I kind of want to have to push the brake pedal kind of hard. Like, that's part of it for me, and I really enjoy that. And no one's done that with electric yet. So that's kind of the whole point behind the Electrocet. It's supposed to be really affordable for what it is. It starts at $60,000, which is not obviously a cheap car, but if you compare it to other, track-oriented vehicles with similar performance, it's not bad considering it is electric. So, and yeah, it has manual steering because it just simply doesn't need power steering. There's not any hint of autonomy anywhere in this car. It's meant to be driven. It's meant to handle as intuitively and pleasantly as it possibly can. Everything about it is just supposed to be like an electric race car for the average person, is kind of the point.
Yeah, and do you happen to know, like, the Ariel Atom pricing? It's probably going to be pretty close to that, I would think.
Yeah, I think our goal was to come in below the cheapest Ariel Atom.
Okay.
So I think the cheapest one's just maybe like 68 or 70. I don't want to say anything wrong there, but it's something like that.
Very cool, man. Yeah, it's always good to hear about that kind of stuff. So kind of switching gears here a little bit in a different direction. I know you're just getting started, but kind of, do you have like a worst experience that you've had so far in creating this business?
I guess I can pleasantly say not really. Nothing's really gone too poorly yet. It's just, it's just a lot of little challenges. It's nothing horrible has happened.
Like, you haven't had like a battery pack explode in the car or anything like that?
No, thankfully no. That'd be very bad. It's mainly been supply chain stuff. That's been the challenge. We build this whole schedule for when we're going to finish this car based on the Sema Launchpad thing you mentioned, which we can chat about in a second if you want. We have this whole timeline that we have, and we figure it's going to be fine. We build the thing as fast as we're supposed to, but we're just sitting here waiting on, part 7 out of 8 to get here because it was held up at some random place. That's the hardest thing. We also waited weeks and weeks to move into our new shop because of some just random insurance things. And yeah, luckily nothing catastrophic yet. Just a bunch of things that just make you want to, punch a wall because you just wish you could start building the thing for real. But yeah, we're pretty much there now, which is nice.
That's good. Yeah, logistics is very, very, very complicated, especially when building something like that. And so, yeah, so kind of why I was asking, in Atlanta, if you're going to be able to source all of the pieces that you need quickly and easily. And, when you go into small production runs, you'll be able to forecast that a little better. But I can understand it's really hard doing it with just a first prototype vehicle, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, even if we built like 5 of these at a time, we'd be just fine, because it's not like it's a 6-month wait that we're on lead time on some of these things. It's just a few weeks, but a few weeks in what we're doing is actually a lot.
We're building,
yeah, pretty much this whole car is going to be designed and manufactured in like 3 or 4 months. So a few weeks is pretty darn a lot based on that.
Yeah. And I mean, we get that same problem in the performance automotive side. Like a customer wants to build this crazy drag car and, they think it can be done in a month, but you start getting somewhere and you're like, oh, I need this specialty widget. oh, well, you got to order it and we got to special make it and then we're going to ship it to you. And then like 2 weeks later, you're halfway through your deadline, and you haven't even gotten started on it. So, it's hard to communicate that kind of stuff to the customer, and you're going to have that, you're running into that same issue trying to manufacture something on your timeline that you spent a lot of time doing. And now you just get to keep moving that timeline to the right is what we call it with all the Gantt charts. So, yeah, good luck with that. It's a never ending struggle for sure. So, Ben, tell us something that you're doing right now that's got you fired up.
Sure. Well, I think you mentioned it earlier in the chat, but we're part of this competition called the Sema Launchpad. It's obviously part of Sema, the big automotive trade organization. Out of a couple hundred teams or so, or over 100 teams rather, they selected 15 companies, and the only criteria is that you have to be an under 40-year-old entrepreneur in the automotive space, and we're very below 40, so we fit right in there. And we did an online application thing, got accepted into that. Now we're one of the top 15 teams. So starting, I think, Tuesday, the 18th, we will be there posting this video. They flew me out to Las Vegas a few weeks ago, and I did a 3-minute video pitch of our product for the Electrocet. And they will be posting that video along with the videos of the other 14 companies. And then that begins a Facebook voting competition that goes until September 4th. And if we're in the top 10 of those 15 on Facebook votes, then we get a 4-foot kiosk booth at SEMA, the show in Las Vegas in November, which 4 feet doesn't seem like much, but I mean, for a company our size, we wouldn't even think about going to SEMA for a while. Because I think even the smallest booth you can get is
it's a
$2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah, it's 10 by 10. It's about $3,500, I think, for the week. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and that's just another example of it's nice to be around other people struggling with us. When I went out to Las Vegas to film that video, there's these other 14 companies. Some of them were a little bit more established. Some were like 4 or 5 months in, 4 or 5 years in. So we were definitely one of the younger ones in terms of our company and like our founders being very young too. But everyone kind of has the same struggles, and even more similar to ours because they're automotive. And it's just, I don't know why that's nice. I guess like mutual suffering is pleasant.
Yep.
It's nice to hear that other people are going through the same stuff and it's not just you. So even if we don't move on, and I think we do have a good chance because our product is, we're very proud of it, and we think it's something that a lot of people will be interested in. So Facebook voting actually works pretty well for what we're doing. But even if we don't move on to the next round, just this much of what we've gotten out of it so far is pretty great.
Exocet was one of them from last year because I always go and watch the thing, and so he competed in it last year with the the Exocet vehicle, and I think it was specifically for the off-road version that they're coming up with now. So it's pretty cool to see another Exocet, but now with an electric. So
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I know a couple people that have the Exocet. There's Richard Tomlin down in, he's outside of Houston. He's got one that he built up for Pikes Peak. And then one of our other previous guests on the show, Zach Denny, he distributes and sells the ECU Master ECU systems. He just bought one a couple months ago and is working on one for he's going to bring it to SEMA as well. So, the Exocet is a cool deal, and it's really exciting to see you guys out at the SEMA Launchpad. And they are definitely taking that very seriously because new for this year is both the interview process, like them actually flying you out to Vegas to do the video for you, which I think is really cool because that's, that levels the playing field for all the competitors. And then also giving you guys a booth, like a little baby booth, is also really cool so that people can come see what the product is before the show or before the actual competition, because you're obviously not going to take a car when you have a 4-foot, little bitty kiosk booth. You need a 10 by 20 minimum. But yeah, that's cool that they're kind of doing that. So I'll be really excited to see how that pans out. And we'll post up some links for the voting, where people can go and vote and see all the other products. Cause I like yours a lot, but there are a lot of really cool products that are this year. Like, there's like a trailer hitch cushion, and there's like the heads-up display. She was there last year. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. There's like is it a glow-in-the-dark paint? I think last year they had glow-in-the-dark stitching.
Yeah,
sure, I think that like a
product's very cool.
Yeah.
It's an electroluminescent coating, so it's not even just glow in the dark. It's you
can
turn
control
it on with a switch. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a flex fuel company, and he's one of the shops that's in our group. So I can't remember exactly what the name was. I'll have to go back and look at it. But yeah, it's a really cool group of people, and if you want to see where the industry is heading, you can kind of look at the Sema Launchpad just in itself and see what entrepreneurs are doing to take it forward. So let's pause here real quick for a commercial, and then we'll be right back.
Hey, Do It For a Living listeners. If you own a shop or are looking to start a shop and want more information on how to run it better, now's your chance. We're hosting an Essentials of Operating a Shop class at the Turn 14 headquarters outside of Philadelphia, PA. The class will be held on August 19th, and for more information, please check out our webpage or our Facebook page on how to sign up.
Okay, Ben, so we're back, and I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about Eddy Motorworks. You kind of told us the product that you guys are making, but, tell us about what makes up the business, like the space you're in, tell us all the people that you have, and, just kind of give us an idea of where you're going to be heading with it.
Yeah, sure. So we just moved in about a month ago into a 3,200 square foot shop in Avondale Estates. It's like a little town about 30 minutes east of Atlanta, pretty much still inside the city. We're still inside the perimeter and everything. So me and my co-founder Josh were the original two. We've now added about 5 people who are basically all working part-time. Some are working part-time but are here, 40, 50 hours a week. But we don't have any full-time employees or anything yet. Really just for the money issue. As soon as we start selling cars, then we have a lot of people that we're ready to go ahead and hire. We have a great team. Pretty much all of them are Georgia Tech people. Some are graduated, some are master's students, and some have like a year left. But they're all engineering, I guess. But we have a chemical engineer, an electrical engineer, computer engineer, a couple mechanical engineers. And then we have one business guy who helps us with the marketing stuff. But as you probably know, when you're in a company this small, you just kind of do everything. So I end up doing a lot of the marketing stuff, a lot of the, financial stuff, all that stuff. So, but yeah, we have a lift here, we have a welding table, we have CNC plasma, CNC circuit mill. So we can do a whole lot of stuff in-house, which is the direction we're trying to move, because as we kind of talked about earlier, just the whole lead time issue is really never going to go away when you're doing custom stuff. Even if we're in like Detroit, where you have every automotive resource possible, it's still hard to get custom circuit boards made the same day, for reasonable prices and all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to move to being able to do as much in-house as we possibly can, 3D printing as well, just anything we can do so we can convert ideas to real things as quickly as you can, because a lot of what we're doing, just there isn't stuff around for it yet. So we're having to 3D print our own parts and create molds, do all of our own fiberglass work, all kinds of stuff that's just very one-off custom kind of things. And as much as that we can keep in-house is better. So right now we're just kind of finishing up, probably pretty much done having our shop all set up. Pretty much everything's there now. Just waiting on a couple more machines, just a couple more things to get it all rounded out. But a weird thing that we haven't really talked about is we share the space with 2 other teams that are actually in that startup incubator I'm in. So we rent the space completely in my name, but I sublease it back out to these 2 other teams who use part of our space. Because at the moment we just don't need the full 3,200 square feet for what we're doing. We only have 2 or 3 cars in here right now. So, and then a welding table and like a plasma area and everything. But so one of the teams is it's called Top Time Coffee Company, and they're a coffee company. They're also building a really cool computer controlled coffee roaster that you can put in your kitchen. You can roast your own raw coffee according to and you can download a cool roast profile. It's a cool thing. So they're along with us. And then there's another team that's building called Oddity Instruments, who's building these cool electro drums. So it's not like an electronic drum, but it's kind of like an electric guitar is to an acoustic guitar, where you have like a magnetic pickup, and then you have like a metallic drum head, and they're really cool, sound really cool. So that's a lot of fun too, because we, like I said, we have total of 7 people with our company, but we pretty much never have all 7 in here at a time.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not able to, pay everyone full-time salary, so it's not like they're all going to be here, 9 to 5 or whatever. But so when we only have a couple people of our team here, there's almost always at least a few from the other teams too, which just makes it more fun, just to be around other people who are doing the same kind of thing. Yeah.
So did what did you do, or how were you able to buy the machines and rent the space? Is that, investor money, or is it from the incubator, got a little bit of that, or is it actually like some of the Georgia Tech equipment that you're using? So kind of how are you able to get a hold of those machines in the space?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, we got an investment as part of that startup incubator we were accepted into. We have just gotten another, pretty small but good enough for what we need now, investment from a private investor, and then the rest of it is my personal. So it's some of my own money, and then it's those 2 investments, and that's pretty much it. The plasma we got from a awesome dude up in Asheville who builds them. So that machine was $8,000, not like a $50,000 plasma table you might see, but and then our circuit mill is not a terribly expensive machine either. The nice thing is we all know how to program G code and do all that stuff, so we can buy a lot. I guess I don't know the way to describe it. Maybe like scrappier machines.
Yeah, and then modify them.
And then we can make them work ourselves. So
you're not buying like brand new Haas, no. CNC machines. You're buying older like Bridgeport kind of stuff and then modifying it.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing.
So how many hours do you think you're working a week right now?
Oh man, at the shop probably I get in by like 8 every day. Probably leave by usually 6, but sometimes I'll if we have something exciting going on, I might be here till 10 or 11. So it doesn't feel like it, but probably like 80 hours a week or something.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's just so much fun. Like everything we're doing is you get done with a day's work, and then you like look at the stuff we built today, and you're like, well, that's pretty damn cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
And so it's worth it. It's not like draining at all. Honestly, I had internships in school with major automakers and stuff like that. So I've worked a 40-hour week at a regular company, and this is far less draining.
So what is going to be the primary source of revenue for the company? Because you said you kind of got a couple of different spots. So kind of break down what you're anticipating you're going to be making money from.
It's really just 2 things. It's just the conversions that we've talked about before. That, like I said, we prefer to kind of move away from those conversions if we could. But they're just an easier thing to get started on right now, because we can get conversions. Like I said, there's another shop in Atlanta that kind of does conversions, but not a whole lot. So we can start doing those jobs now. People know what that service is, because I mean, you've seen the people out on the West Coast who do it. So it's pretty easy to find people for that. But that doesn't have great margins. It's not scalable, because every time we do one, it's a different one, unless we somehow do the same car twice. But so that's part of it. That's enough to keep the bills paid for the near future, which is nice, because we can start doing $20,000 or $30,000 conversion jobs next month just to pay bills, which is great.
Yeah.
But the main source of revenue, hopefully, will be from Electrocet orders. So we have a $500 pre-order fee that just saves your spot in line, kind of like a Kickstarter kind of thing, just not on Kickstarter. That's on our website. And then once we finish this pre-production model, we'll just call up the first person on the list. We'll build that person's car out in terms of options, and then we take 50% of the build price up front, and then 50% on delivery. And if that's the goal is that we can finance everything, pay all our paychecks, pay all our bills with pretty much just Electrocet sales.
Gotcha. And so you've got various models and different options that they can do, that will change the pricing and change the look of the vehicle.
Exactly. So, I mean, we have 3 main trim levels or performance levels, as pretty much every car does. We have the 1S2, which is based on a 60 kilowatt hour Tesla, the 2P6, which is based on a 70, and then the 3D10, which will be based on a P85. We have not finished development on that one yet. So they all start at 60,000. The cheapest one starts at 60,000, and they go up from there. And that's with pretty much base kit, Sparco Sprint seats, little big brake kit from Flying Miata, that kind of stuff. Still pretty good hardware. It's not like it's not like stock Miata anything. It's all quality aftermarket parts that are making up the suspension, and everything's pretty good. So, but if you go to like Exomotive's website, for example, you can see if you're buying an Electrocet or an Exocet from them, the regular kit, you can see just like the ridiculous number of options that you have for how you want to build out your thing. You can get so many different steering wheels, so all of that is for now is going to be pretty much on a one-off custom basis. So we'll just have a conversation with the customer, because we're not going to be able to do much more than a couple a month at this point. So everyone can be built completely to order for the customer.
Gotcha. And tell me a little bit about how you're sourcing the drivetrain.
Well, it's pretty much the simplest way you can imagine doing it. We go to scrap yards, we go to salvage yards and buy totaled Tesla Model S's. They're crashed significantly more than you might expect, to the point where AAA actually just released a press release explaining how electric luxury sedans are in a different insurance bracket than regular luxury sedans, because they're crashed so much more frequently, which is great for us. So I don't really know why. My theory is that people buy an electric car. When people go and like buy an Aston Martin, they kind of know what they're getting into. Yeah. But when people go and buy an electric car, they're like, oh, it's an electric car. And then they like take their buddy out and they're like, let's see what this ludicrous mode thing does. And then they find a tree very quickly.
Wrap it around a tree, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the cool thing about these cars is the batteries are in a very intensely strong titanium and aluminum box underneath. That's very protected. You'd have to be in a very, very bad accident for those to be damaged. And then the motor's out back between the between the rear wheels. So we just look for cars that are in a front end collision generally, pull out, buy the entire car, because it's a lot cheaper for us to do the tear down ourselves. It doesn't take but a day for us to get everything we need out of it. And we haven't completely explored the final step of that, but then, which is we can sell a lot of the parts we don't use back.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, like, I don't know what the resale market's going to be on that stuff, but yeah, like doors and seats and windows and stereos and, all the autonomous cameras and all the control modules and everything is going to be a big market just for that. So if you've got anybody that's good at eBay, you can probably start an auxiliary business and just charge a royalty fee on it or something like that.
That's the plan. We got a big pile of Tesla parts, and that's definitely one of the next things on the list once we have a little bit extra manpower after this build. So are you, like the market there's obviously a bunch of wrecked Teslas now, but what is your plan if, things take off and you start building like, I don't know, let's say like 50 of these a month? What are you going to what are you going to try to do to get your hands on drivetrains? I mean, if we're selling 50 a month, we're going to have to change the way we do things. And I mean, you make a very good point. It's not exactly a very scalable sourcing strategy, but I also didn't intend for the first car we build to be the last car we build. We're going to have to change something at some point. It'd be very great if at some point we had a direct OEM relationship with a motor and battery manufacturer that was of the same quality and performance as Tesla's, or even them. I don't know if that's something that could be possible. At this point, for the foreseeable future, the way we're doing it now will do just fine. Yeah. Just as kind of an anecdote or an analogous example, if you look at Exomotive and their Exocet, they've sold, there's been over 500 of those sold, and there's 750,000 NA and NB Miatas on the road. Mm-hmm. So if they can sell 500 of those in 5 years with 750,000 donor vehicles that are crashed kind of infrequently, yeah, there's been almost 200,000 Tesla Model S's sold.
Ah, okay.
So in a much shorter time period too. So I mean, that's the same order of magnitude. So if they can sell 505 years with 750,000 donors, we can probably sell a few hundred in 5 years with $200,000 donors. So not too worried about it in the short term. Obviously, if we want to scale to be a very large company making a whole lot of these all the time, we're going to have to find a different way to get our drivetrain stuff.
Yeah, you'll just be, buying or sourcing or manufacturing or contracting the batteries and the motors somewhere else. Because from what you said, you're not taking like any of the autonomous chunk of Tesla. You're just using them because they've got the best battery and the best motor on the market right now.
Yeah.
And you're not using any of the like suspension components or body modules or anything like that?
No, pretty much the only thing we're using is the motor, the drive unit, which is a combined unit that has the motor, the inverter, the motor controller, a transmission, and a differential, all in one big thing. So we're using that whole thing, and then we're using the battery modules, but we're not even using the battery in its assembled state. We're taking the individual modules. So in a 60, there's 14 of those, and we're taking 12 of them.
Okay, so you can kind of disassemble them?
Those. Yeah, you can. So each module has a good number, somewhere between 350 and 450, depending on the size of the Tesla, cells, which just look like AA's. They're Panasonic style 18650 lithium-ion cells. And then each module is like 2 feet by 1 foot pancake, 3 inches tall or so. And that thing, they just stack a bunch of those together. So each one of those, depending on the Tesla, is about 4 to 5.5 kilowatt hours, and they're like 22 volts. So whatever model Tesla it is, they just stack more of those together. So we pull those out, and each one of those has a individual battery management system on them. But we don't use Tesla's master supervisory BMS. We use our own system for that. So we communicate to each of they're called slave BMSs, and get their information, and then consolidate all that on our computers and do stuff with it that way. We have a master control board we call just a body control module that takes in user inputs for drive mode and ignition and all that stuff. Ignition's a funny word to use for an electric car, but that's still what we call the on switch for some reason.
Okay.
and then that communicates over CAN bus and over all the stuff to make everything work together.
Yeah, so you're having to innovate quite a bit of the electronics to get it, to convert it. You're not just pulling the battery and the motor out and then hooking the gas pedal up.
Yeah, that's by far the hardest part. I bet you there's a whole lot of people listening who could pretty darn easily pull the motor out and find a way to put it in a car and hook up some axles. Mm-hmm. That's the easy part. The hard part is getting stuff to talk to each other and actually function, and all the code and all the wiring and all that stuff. That's just it's not really what you think of when you think about building cars, but it ends up being pretty much the hardest part about it.
Yeah, because I think Sasha Honest, the previous guest we had, he was also using a Motec to log the temperatures of either each individual cell or like each little pack. I think he said there's like 100 of them, and then do traction control as well. So he was, using some body control module to control everything, but then piggybacking with the Motec on monitoring and then adjusting the throttle as well. So, it's a pretty cool setup that he's got going there in the Evora. So be curious to see, when you guys get that car all done, how it all turns out.
I mean, we're doing a lot of what we're doing is very similar to what Sasha did. I've never spoken to him, but I mean, it'd be an interesting conversation because we're doing really similar things. We obviously are kind of hitting it. He hit it from a one-off, really high performance, high feature standpoint, and we're kind of going for more of a get as much performance as you can, but still try to keep it as affordable as possible. So things like a Motec screen and a Motec body control module are not feasible.
Yeah, not in your price range.
Yeah, for what we're trying to do. So yeah, we developed our own body control module that it definitely does not have all the features of a Motec, for instance, but it has pretty much everything you need. We have two big screens, one behind the dash and one in the center, that tell you all your cell temperature information, voltage information, pretty much everything you possibly need to know. We derate the power of the vehicle if it does get too hot. which is a concern. If you're doing really intense track time on a really, really hot day, that's possible. We're doing everything we can to mitigate that with cooling, but it's still possible. So if the car does start to overheat the batteries or the motor, our BCM will recognize that and then start to derate the power of your motor, basically push you into a less intense drive mode. And eventually it will shut the car off or put you into like a 5 kilowatt limp mode where you can just get off the track if you had to. So we're doing a lot of the same stuff he does, just a similar approach in a lot of ways, but different in a few.
Yeah, you're looking more for the manufacturing side. You want to make a bunch of these. Where his goal was to do it. Like
exactly.
He wanted to make something really cool, but I didn't. He may turn into manufacturing them, but you started this business with an actual business model in mind to keep this thing going.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll have to organize a do it for a living electric car drag race when everybody gets done with all their vehicles.
Well, God, I'm trying to think of who would win that. That would be, our car will be much lighter, but those volt batteries can do a lot more power.
Okay.
So that'd be a fun one. Yeah,
we'll get several people going, and I would invite you guys out to the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Challenge. We invited Sasha to go do one, but they don't allow the Exocet because it's an open wheel. So
gotcha.
Put a body around it, and then you guys can come out and race with us, and we can really see what it can do. The only limiting factor would be the power capacity. I really wish Tesla would have done it, and they had talked about doing the interchangeable batteries instead of having to charge it, having the ability to charge it, but I'd much rather be able to just exchange it while it's in the car, because then you can take your 30-minute, hypercharge or whatever down to like a 3-minute battery exchange. Yeah. So that would be, I know you guys may have already thought about that, but that would be something that I would be interested in if I had a Exocet race car. Was like, well, I want to be able to do it for a whole day, not just, I'm sure it could make it a session, but then you'd have to charge it for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever. So it's going to be cool to see how it turns out.
That is of course a limitation, the whole range thing. But most people, when they do take their car to the track, they don't end up using it. They don't go 250 miles on track day. Some people do. And you're right. I mean, that it would be the holy grail to be able to have a hot battery swap. We have thought about it. It is not easy.
No, I imagine it's got to be tough because you're going to come probably from the bottom, which is where all the support structure is to hold it in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to be tough.
One thing I can tell you though is I don't know if Tesla wants people to know this, but when you pull the batteries out of the Tesla, they are absolutely designed to be swapped out. The connectors, I'm holding it in my hand actually right now. There's a big double paddle like spade connector thing that just 2 huge chunks of copper stick down into. So when you unbolt the battery, which is like a whole lot of screws, but if you had the right machine that could do them all really fast, the whole thing, you don't have to disconnect any plugs. When you drop the thing, the plugs disconnect themselves. It just unplugs.
That's super cool.
It is super cool. So I don't really know. It might just be one of those things where they're like, they designed it in there in case one day they want to do it.
Yeah, he announced it like several years ago that's what he was going to, well, maybe not several years ago, but a little while ago, he was like, we're going to be able to exchange batteries for, and it's faster than you can fill your car up with gas. And then they didn't do it. Then they pushed the charging stations really hard, and I was really disappointed. But, in the back of my mind, I was like, that's really the answer, is to exchange it. And then you just lease, you buy a car without a battery, and then you just lease the battery. That to me makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, it would be cool. There's just my answer to that is I think it's just a technological challenge at the moment, and an infrastructure. One is making sure that the cars can safely swap out a battery. There's a lot of safety things that go on with communicating with your battery to make sure everything's safe. And when you swap out a battery, there's a lot more variables you throw in, but that's all solvable. Probably the bigger thing is just you got to have an infrastructure to do that. I mean, that battery weighs a lot. Depending on the Tesla you have, it's hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So you'll have to have some, oil change kind of looking bay where you drive over this thing and a big, crane comes up from underneath and grabs on your battery and unbolts like 100 screws at once. It's going to be a whole big thing. So We haven't looked into it for the Electrocet yet.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make it fast charge and all that kind of thing, and make the range good enough. The bigger thing is we're just trying to design the range to be far enough so that it could fulfill most autocrosses or track days, and then get you home at the end of the day.
Yeah, that would be very cool. I'm excited to see one out there. I'll have to find somebody that wants to buy one, and I'll get one in Dallas.
Nice.
Okay, cool. Well, let's take a second break here real quick, and we'll be right back.
We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial.
Okay, so we're back. And so kind of tell us what's the most successful method you've used to promote the business, kind of as you're getting started.
Well, we haven't, for at least the Electrocet, we have not done a whole lot of promotion yet. We just put together a really high-quality teaser video is what we're calling it. It kind of looks like the first 60-second video you might see for a new movie before you really know what the plot is. That's what we've put together for now. We're launching our new website this week, and we'll have that video up next week, and then we start this whole SEMA thing. And at that point, it's going to be mostly social media and then pushing this video to as many circles as we can. And then, of course, the car shows is what you've already talked about. So up until this point, we haven't done a whole lot other than take the cars we have built to car shows around the Atlanta area and just hand out cards and talk to people. And more so than marketing, what we get out of those is trying to find out what people actually want. We're now finally approaching the point where we're ready to start actually selling the thing. But up until this point, we've been, developing the whole thing, and we want to make sure we're developing something that people actually want. So more than marketing, we've really just been collecting information up until this point.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So, looking ahead, kind of what is the 1-year plan for the business?
I would hope in 1 year we will have the production of the Electrocet rolling. That would be really exciting if we had, kind of the whole thing set up. We were taking orders online and we were fulfilling them on time and bringing them to customers who were really excited. We'll be in the same shop. Of course, we have at least 3 years here. If we could have the whole website built up so that you could, like a normal car, go on and build and price your own on the website and then submit an order, kind of make it a little bit more polished of a process. That's kind of the things we're looking at for the next years. Have everything, just make it a very easy purchase process because everyone wants to do stuff online now. So go online, build up your whole car, send in a payment, and then it starts being built.
Cool. So what about 5 years? So 5 years from now, where do you see the business heading?
Man, that's a hard one. I at that point, I hope that we've continued to develop something, and I have no idea what that could be. Right now is a really cool point in time to be doing what we're doing because the technology is there and the resources are there to do what we're doing, but no one else has really started to build these kind of things yet. In 5 years, I expect that will be different. I think fewer than 5 people have spun a Tesla motor out of the car, as far as I can tell, unless people are just doing it in their basement and not telling anybody. But so right now we're on the cutting edge of people building cars out of Tesla powertrains. In 5 years, I'm sure that's going to be a pretty commonplace thing. So in 5 years, I have no idea. I would love to be building a different car. The big dream is to go towards something more Ariel Atom-like, where we have we're building the entire cars in-house. We have a direct connection with the powertrain supplier, whoever that is at that point. That would be the goal eventually, and have it be a scalable thing where we can, eventually move into a larger shop, be buying all of our parts directly, have a large inventory of everything we need, and then be constantly, innovating and adding features to our vehicle. That would be the exciting thing.
Yeah, man, I wish you the best of luck, because I'd love to see lots of Tesla conversions instead of LS conversions. I think that'd be a really cool, like a cool retrofit that I'm hoping that a lot of people are going to want to do. Again, once the range is already really good, but it's only going to get better. So, as that gets better and better, I'm hoping to see more of those. And you guys are definitely on the cutting edge of it for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what other people are going to start doing too. Kind of another thing on the 5-year plan is, wouldn't it be crazy if we started building these things and sold a good bit of them, and then some other people started building some electric race cars too, and there was some, there's some racing segments that you could go out and do specifically for electric track cars. That would be a crazy thing. That's a super stretch goal, but if we could be the first people to kind of start out that idea.
Yeah, on like a club level.
Yeah, I mean, Formula E is already a thing, but no one is racing on a hobbyist level.
Yeah.
Electric cars yet. So.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Like I mentioned earlier, the Optima Batteries event, they have an electric class and nobody has entered in yet. And I'm just like, if you want to get an invite to the finals in Las Vegas, you are guaranteed one if you just bring an electric car to the event. And so I'm just waiting for somebody to just roll up in a Model S and then like compete and then just go home and get their invite to Las Vegas. But nobody's done it yet. I'm really surprised nobody's done it yet, but I'm hoping somebody will do it. So yeah, the racing is going to be, that's where all of our excitement comes from, is, seeing how far you can push it and what you can do differently. And, then you start getting more into, instead of the power, you're looking at lightweight material and aerodynamics. You can, and then adding more batteries and, bigger motors and stuff, but it's going to be working with different materials on reducing the weight and getting that least amount of drag with the most amount of downforce. I just love that kind of stuff. So curious to see where it goes. So can you suggest an action item for our listeners to take to improve their situation?
I guess just in terms of what we've learned here, just try to put as much into your own hands as you possibly can in terms of, manufacturing a product like what we're doing. If anyone's doing anything like what we're doing, I'm sure you found out that one of the most aggravating things is waiting for stuff to come to you. So what we've been pushing towards recently is expanding what we can do in-house, from fiberglass to circuit production to welding to plasma cutting, everything, so we just don't have to wait on other people. That has made our lives a lot easier. I'm not sure how applicable that kind of suggestion is. I don't know if a lot of the people listening have those kinds of issues, but goodness, it's nice to be able to just, you design the thing and say, okay, we need that bracket, and then you walk across to the other side of the room and make that bracket.
And you just make it, yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, that was, I have my own CNC plasma table specifically for that reason. Bought it probably 3 years ago now, and I still use it often. I just absolutely love that machine. So kind of moving on now, we're kind of getting to the end here, the quick answer questions. Something that you've seen, kind of tell us a game-changing product that you've seen in the last year.
The Model 3, I guess, is probably a pretty exciting one. Oh, actually, I might say the Neo EP9, that electric race car you're talking about earlier. I wish they didn't go so super luxury with it, or I guess super car with it, and made something that was a little bit more attainable and relatable. And I just, goodness, wish they didn't make it autonomous. I don't know why everyone thinks electric and autonomous have to be the same thing, but the point of a race car is not just to have the best time. It's supposed to be enjoyable to drive and exciting, and I don't understand how people have forgotten that. But anyway, that car is an amazing thing, and it's very impressive, some of the stuff they've done with the motors and the battery in the car. Yeah. It's inspiring to see that they can set the ceiling so high, set the bar so high for what is possible with this. So it helps us, because those kind of cars being famous, people can look at that and say, oh, well, if somebody can break a Nürburgring lap record with an electric car, then these guys in Atlanta can probably build a pretty cool track car with electric too, Yeah,
it's definitely good secondary publicity to see electric cars like that, because it's obviously a different market than what you were doing. They were going for the pinnacle, what is the absolute fastest we can go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to me, that car came out of nowhere. Like, I hadn't seen anything about it or heard anything about it, and then I started seeing lap times, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this thing is fast. And then then the article started coming out, and I was like, I don't even know where this team is. Like, I don't even know what they do. So, it's pretty amazing how that happens. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like that did kind of set the stage for people being interested in electric cars on the track. So that's a good point. What kind of like software programs are you using daily?
Well, I use a lot of, so currently for like project management, we use pretty much open source free stuff. We use Slack for communication. We use Trello for some of our planning and task allotment. So I use that pretty much every day. For mechanical design, I do a lot of brackets in just AutoCAD really easily. And then I do our 3D design in Siemens NX, which is an incredibly good software for 3D design and CAD and CAM too. That's pretty much all I use every day. Some of our software guys, of course, they probably use Eagle every day for PCB design. A lot of our code is in Visual Studio, in C#. And then I don't actually know what development environment they're using for some of our controllers, but it's in like C, so they could be using anything. Yeah. So I'm not actually sure. But...
Yeah, pretty much anything.
Yeah.
What about like your favorite app that you use on your phone? What do you use most common?
Oh, McMaster. Do you guys have McMaster in Texas?
Yeah, McMaster car.
Like this supply company. Yeah. There's a supply. Their big warehouse is 30 minutes away from us in Atlanta. I think it's like their biggest one. I could be wrong, but it's enormous. So they have a really nice app. This is a pretty lame answer to this question. I'm sure you're hoping like Tinder or something, but no. My favorite app is McMaster because I can just go on there and get any bolt I possibly need, and then like drive across town, pick it up, and come back and have it same day.
I think I may really download that app today because I use their website.
The app is surprisingly good.
Okay, yeah, because their website looks like it was built in like the 80s.
Yeah.
It's so basic, but it's a catalog, so it needs to be basic. So I'm gonna check out their app because I probably use them once a month. Because again, like you buy like really weird stuff. Like I bought 12-inch long half-inch bolts for this project I was working on, and like they were the only people that had them. Like they're enormous, and I was like, oh, I'll just get 10 of these, and so I'm definitely going to look that up. That's actually a really good answer.
The app also looks like it's made in the 80s, to be honest. Like it's still that same gray thing where they have like a kind of artist depiction of what the part actually looks like. But it's it's the easiest way. I mean, there's a lot of other, like even it's better than Grainger, I think. You can find exactly, it's just organized really well, which
it's
even like an actual hardware store isn't organized that well.
So what about like out in the actual shop? What's your favorite like physical shop tool to use?
Well, I mean, we've already been over the CNC plasma. It's pretty darn fun. It's just, we are even doing copper bus bars with it, for our batteries and stuff like that.
Really? I've never cut copper on it.
You can. It just takes a lot of current. Because it conducts so much better, so it doesn't get quite as hot as quick. But you can do it. I'm trying to think what else is cool. We're getting that circuit mill any day now. That'll probably quickly become my favorite one because currently we're designing these circuits real quickly, to try to interface all these different components. And until we graduated, I was able to get those done at school pretty much free. And now we don't have that ability anymore. So our only option is to get them made for $100 a board from like a printing service online that ships them to us, which is it's just ridiculous. $100 for a tiny hunk of fiberglass with copper on it is just crazy, and it takes a very long time. A week is a long time, especially because circuits are the kind of thing you make one dumb mistake and then you have to throw away the whole thing and start over. And if you hit 100 every time, it's horrible. So very excited to have that so we can mill it in an hour and then have a new PCB. Well, it's not a PCB, just a milled circuit board, and go ahead and test it that day.
That is cool. Yeah. So you guys are you're wanting to make your own circuit boards, right?
Currently, we do. We just have to have someone else
outsource it,
physically make them. We design them. We just have to have someone else do them. We're looking to make our own circuit boards in house, print them. Start with a hunk of copper clad fiberglass, cut them out, solder to them, and then plug them in all in the same day, which will be killer.
Awesome. And then what's your like daily driver car?
Well, as you know, all things Miata are wonderful. So I have an Indy, the new Miata. I love it. It's a super pleasant car. I used to have an '06 Cayman S that I spent all of my money on when I was in high school.
Okay.
Right as I graduated high school, which was a great use of all of my money at the time.
Yeah.
I am serious. I loved it. Probably owning that car influenced my career going into performance cars. Just having a car that was the thing I keep talking about, of cars that are enjoyable to be driven, that you feel so much in that car. It's great. So that unfortunately got totaled by a drunk driver recently, but
bummer.
That's okay. Now I have a Indy Miata that gets 32 mpg, and it's still pretty darn fun.
Yeah.
It just sounds like a lawnmower is the only downside.
They do, yeah. Do you track it? Like, do you take it out to the track?
I have not yet. I've only had it for like 3 months, so I have not yet.
Okay, so you're just getting started, huh?
Yeah.
So, you being an innovator and younger in the industry, where do you see the future of automotive performance going?
Well, I guess I think it's electric, but I don't necessarily know. The one thing I do know, or I do think strongly, is that automotive performance is going to have to really start focusing on driver feel. I think that's going to become really important, because the autonomous thing again, people are going to forget what it's like to drive a car. Even now, you put someone in like one of the last car we built, that track car, or you just put someone in any driver focused car where you have feedback from the road, and it just you can feel the throttle response and all that stuff. You put someone in a car like that and they're like, wow, this is really amazing to drive. And you're like, yeah, because you've been in a Camry for 3 years.
Yep.
You don't recognize that driving can actually be a really enjoyable thing. So I don't know if we're going to move away from gasoline, or how quickly we will, or if it's going to be a two-step thing from hybrid to electric. I don't really know how that's going to happen. People have been making conjectures on that for years, and they've pretty much all been wrong every time with how quickly we're going to run out of oil, or anything. I don't know where that's going to go, but I guess what I do know is that we're going to have to, I think people are going to really start caring about cars that feel nice to drive, because especially if people have an autonomous car, or like you mentioned at the beginning, like ride share an autonomous lift or something, they're going to, I think that part of driving, of feeling in control and part of the experience, is going to become really important to people for the performance side of the market.
Interesting. Yeah, I've said it before, and I still think it's going to happen, that these performance tracks are going to turn into places where people get an opportunity to physically drive the car themselves. Like, because you're going to be in your autonomous vehicle all day and maybe not know how to drive, and then you go to a track and actually learn to drive and physically drive a more analog vehicle, like maybe an Electrocet out at the track. Yeah. I really think that's going to become a business model here in the future, where, right now the tracks are for drivers that want to go fast. And I think in the future it'll be for people who want to know what it was like to drive a car.
Oh, goodness. I hope not.
They may have some 60s cars and some 30s cars and some 2000s cars. So just kind of all over the place that people can rent specific ones. Cause like I've done the driver experience where the person gets to drive a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a McLaren or a GTR. I think it's going to turn into just a regular car as well. So it'll be kind of funny if that ever actually happens.
That would be hilarious. You're for only $100 a day, you can drive this Toyota Camry 3 laps around this track.
Yeah, and people are going to go nuts. Yeah, you have to push the pedals and you get to steer. And you had to wear a helmet. And so, I really think that's going to happen, and it'll be funny if it does. And then looking back at it and being like, man, I can't believe we used to drive our cars ourselves. But yeah, it's there's a lot to be said about the feel of the car. That experience. I get kind of jaded because I do it all the time, every month or something, every day. So I think there's going to be a lot of that analog feel is going to be exhilarating to people, that are going to get used to not having it. So like you said, when you go from a Camry to a Miata, it's a huge difference. And so it's going to be the same for, being chauffeured by your car into being able to drive a car. So, closing out here, how do we get a hold of you and your company? Kind of what's your website and Facebook page, and how do people find out more about you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Eddy Motorworks, which is EDDY. Our website, which I just mentioned, we're just relaunching, so probably by the time this podcast goes live, it'll be up, is eddymotorworks.com. And there you can check out that teaser video I talked about. You can pre-order the car. It'll be up for pre-order likely before this podcast is posted. It's a $500 down payment, and that saves your spot in line for the car. And you can also learn about the other things we do on our website about conversions and all the other stats about the Electrocet and everything like that. So should be pretty easy to find.
Awesome.
And if you're in Atlanta, you can stop by our shop over in Avondale.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I may have to do that sometime. I'll find out a way to go to Global Time Attack at Road Atlanta, and then make my way over. Yeah, man, I really appreciate you taking some time, and it's always really cool to hear the innovation in the industry, and you've got a really cool product. So I wish you and your team the best of luck.
Great, I appreciate you having me, Todd.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum.